What's up guys, Sub-Zeric here, and today I'm doing a tier list. I haven't done one of these in a while, and this is pretty different from the ones that I normally do. Usually I'm making a tier list like a week or a few days after a patch comes out, but because I'm going to be on vacation when this patch comes out, and when this video comes out, I am making this tier list ahead of time, talking about the comps that I think are going to be really strong in the new patch 14.12. So I'm going to go through, this is more just patch rundown with all the changes. I'm going to go through all the changes that affect the comps that I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to talk about the comp themselves. So yeah, let's just hop into it right now. So this is a comp that got buffed in multiple different ways. I want you to focus on this big Galio buff. 20 less mana to cast every single time means we're going to be getting to faster casts with Galio. I mean, this is a huge reduction in mana. Also a couple of buffs to some Bruiser 2 costs, and you can start to see the comp come together as you see what I'm talking about here. Little bit of buff to Aatrox's damage, not the biggest thing, but not terrible. Little bit of buff to Riven's AD scaling. Once again, not huge, but you know, does a little bit of extra damage. Sivir buffed as well, and I don't really care about the 3-star buff, but the 2-star buff, quite nice in this comp, an extra second of ability duration. And Trick Shot damage reduction from 40 to 45%, or their damage to 40 to 45%. So small buff for 2 Trick Shot. So in my opinion, this is going to be the 5th strongest comp that I'm going to talk about today, and this is Trick Shot Kaisa. So this is a comp that started coming back last patch because they rebuffed Trick Shots. It's a comp that, you know, has always been... I mean, it was really good at the start of the set, and then it really fell off a cliff when they nerfed Trick Shots really hard, they nerfed Xayah really hard, and they nerfed 4 Trick Shot. But they buffed back 4 Trick Shot. They buffed 2 Trick Shot, which doesn't matter for this board, but it's nice as a transitionary trait that's going to get you to this board, so that's really important. And like I said, Galio buffed, Sivir buffed, Riven buffed, Aatrox buffed, and nothing nerfed in this comp. So I actually have faith that this comp will be quite strong on the new patch, especially from Fortune openers. That's where people love to play it. But even from just a normal good setup, you can play this comp with a decent AD start, play around Sivir early, get to Kaisa late game, and have a really good time. Just if you aren't familiar with this comp, you always want IE Last Whisper on Kaisa. These items are really important on Kaisa because her spell is going to be bouncing to backline, so you really want the LW to be applying on the unit that Kaisa's hitting with her ability. Teemo holds anti-heal fantastically well. This Teemo unit is actually like a really solid item holder. If you get some tiers, throwing a blue buff on him is completely acceptable. Obviously, a late game, we're going to get out of Bard and we're going to get into Xayah for the max cap version of the board, and then we can start itemizing her with stuff like Deathblade, GS, just anything really. Renans is completely fine on her. Yeah, like anything really, just AD items onto Xayah. And then for your front line, you play around 4 Bruiser, you play around Galio as your main tank. He loves Gargoyles and Redemption, and Protector's Vow to get him casting faster, especially with this mana buff, is really nice. And then Sylas kind of just takes on whatever other items that you have. He can hold like a Thief's Glove really well, so you can like throw that onto him. Or if you are fortunate enough to get Sylas items, stuff like Crown Guard, Ionic Spark, another just some kind of mana item on Redemption, but I'm really liking Protector's Vow. Yeah, like another Protector's Vow can also work very well onto Sylas, so these are really solid items on him. Positioning wise, this is the greedy version of the positioning where you put Sivir over here so that she's going to buff up Kaisa, and then you put Teemo here to receive the attack speed, or late game you'll do something like this. Though honestly, you probably still do this in the late game because you really want your anti-heal to be on the same target that Kaisa's hitting. So like imagine there's a frontliner up here where these buttons are. You really want Teemo to be anti-healing them and Kaisa to be hitting them. If you have Teemo over here, he's going to be anti-healing some random unit over here, and you really want Kaisa to be able to burn through a unit that's getting anti-healed from Teemo. So this is sort of like the greedy version of the positioning. If you end up fighting somebody with like a really scary AoE setup, they're playing on Morgana, they're playing on Nautilus, you can do stuff like this, just clump up these guys in the middle and then put Kaisa and Xayah on the edges. Or if you're really scared of them getting wrecked, you can even just go like the full clump, just Kaisa all on her own over here, and then just clump over here like this. Or once you hit Xayah too, you can do the reverse with this. But yeah, I think this comp got buffed a good bit. I think it will be very solid. So yeah, play this comp if you get the chance. All right, our next comp, this is actually a comp that only received a tiny nerf, which is this Nautilus HP nerf, and a very small buff, which is this Janna spell damage buff. But that is Mythic Lilia. This is a comp that I think was fantastic last patch, and they're not really nerfing it this patch, and they're nerfing a lot of other comps that it can kind of struggle into. Stuff like Duelist, which is a really rough matchup for this comp because it's hard for Lilia and Morgana to just one-shot a Duelist. It's really easy, though, once Duelists get a little bit weaker in the meta for Lilia and Morgana to do their work against Duelists. So I think this will be a really, really solid comp on the new patch. Like I said, barely nerfed at all, just a tiny nerf to Nautilus and a buff to Janna, which is pretty nice. So you're basically going to play this comp in the exact same way that you did last patch. You duo cured Lilia and Morgana. Ideally, your anti-heal goes on Morgana. If you have to put your anti-heal on Lilia, you can, but you really want it on Morgana just because she spreads it so much better. And then support item Static Shiv is so nice in this comp because you're trying to hit backline with all of your abilities. And so stuff like Ionic Spark is just a little bit worse because you want the Lilia and the Morgana spells to be hitting MR shredded units on the backline. So that's why Static Shiv is so nice. Lilia itemization, this is the 2 Invoker version of the comp, so please build Shojin. If you play the 4 Invoker version, you want to be playing blue buff just because of the way that the mana thresholds work. But on this version, it's completely fine to build Shojin, and it's a lot easier to get to Shojin, and then just damage items. JG is pretty solid because you're getting a lot of AP from Arcanist, you're getting AP from Heavenly, with the Soraka, and you're getting AP from Mythic, so JG pretty solid. And then Death Cap's a good extra item. The other item that a lot of people really like is Guard Breaker. Here are all the gloves. Yeah, you can do a little Guard Breaker setup as well on Lilia, which is pretty cool. You know, even something like an Archangels is okay if you have to. Not my favorite item in the world, but, you know, in a pinch, you can make an Archangels and it's completely fine. So yeah, I mean, pretty straightforward. Put your tank items on Alawi, usually just because you're getting to Alawi too, and also she's like more tanky than this Nautilus unit generally. So really, usually tank items are going to go on Alawi, and then you'll just throw like a Protectors of Alan Nautilus or something to get him casting. But yeah, Alawi's a monster. She's so tanky, especially because they're nerfing Nautilus's tankiness. So Alawi is still probably going to be more tanky than Nautilus for, I don't know, until the end of the set, I guess. But yeah, I think this comp pretty much barely touched it all and going to be very strong on this patch still. So definitely play this one. All right. The next thing that I want to talk about is this huge system change here. Level 7 shop odds. I don't really care about the 1 and 2 costs, but those are being reduced, so it's harder to hit your 2 cost 3 stars on 7. But also, level 7 odds, 36% to 40% on 7 for your 3 costs. That is huge, an extra 4% for every single shop tile that you're getting, basically. Like, this is hugely important, an extra 4%. I didn't say an extra 40%, right? But yeah, this is hugely important if you want to play 3 cost reroll. 3 cost reroll has basically been thrown out of meta this entire set because they nerfed your shop odds for 3 costs earlier in this set, but now they're bringing it back. You can roll on 7 for all kind of 3 cost reroll comps. So the next 3 comps that I'm going to talk about are all 3 cost reroll comps that I think are going to be a lot stronger after these changes and some other changes, and one of which was already kind of strong on this patch, so I think it'll be very nice. All right, so the other change I want to talk about, there is the Soraka buff, which is kind of nice at 3-star, but I really want to talk about this Yone buff. 0.05 attack speed increase is pretty big, right? If you just think about it from a percentage increase, I mean, it's, I don't know, less than, I mean, it's like, yeah, whatever, 0.05 is divided by 85, which is 1 in 17. I mean, that's like a pretty decent, like 15 is, what is that, like 6%? 15% is like a little bit over 6%, so I don't know, something like that. It's 1 in 17, so it's like probably like 6%, something like that. I don't know. That was quick maths, but a big buff to Yone's attack speed. This is a guy who you're going to be hitting 3-star if you're playing around the 3-star version of him, and he's going to get a bunch of AD from 3-starring him, so the attack speed is really nice on him. He's someone who likes attack speed for items like Titan's Resolve. So yeah, this is a pretty big buff to Yone, a unit that was definitely kind of like out of the meta, and they're trying to bring him back in because he was so broken early on in the set, and now he's kind of out of meta. But they're trying to bring him back, and I think the 3 cost change plus this, plus some of the comps that you can play him with are going to be really solid, because the other change that I want to talk about is this Kayn buff, another big base stat buff, 75 to 80 AD, and this does scale up when you star level him up. So, I mean, in best case, you get a Kayn 3-star, but that's not to be talked about. But even Kayn, you know, 2-star is getting a big AD buff as well from this. The same kind of math goes back. 5 out of 75 is 1 out of 15, which is a little bit more than 6%, right? I think so. I think I figured that out. Yeah, I think that's right. So a little bit more than 6% buff for Kane's AD. Really, really nice because this unit benefits from AD a lot. And so you can sort of see Yone, Kane, we are talking about a Yone reroll comp we're playing around for Reaper. Also, now that I think about it, I don't think I actually put it in the slides, but I believe, yeah, 4 Reaper also got buffed. So let me pull this up for you guys real quick. 4 Reaper bleed duration goes down to 2 seconds, which means it's doing the same amount of damage, but it's doing it faster. So that's another buff to Reaper, which I didn't pull into the presentation. But yeah, 4 Reaper being buffed as well means this comp is, in my opinion, gonna be pretty solid. I really want to try this out on the new patch because Yone is somebody who, yeah, he was so good early set, and he's just been so bad the rest of the set. This is the 4 Reaper 4 Heavenly version, so basically you play it like you're going to be playing into Heavenly Kayn, but instead of going super vertical Heavenly, you play around Yone, you play around Kindred. Obviously, Kayn just fits onto the board really easily with Kha'Zix, and then you play Morgana as well for the ghostly damage buff, and also is a really good holder of Morellos. So yeah, and then like ideally, right, once you start pushing levels, you can get stuff like the Wukong in, and then that fits really well. 5 Heavenly, 2 Sage, and then your board's really poppin'. If you ever, of course, find a Wukong, you can just fit him in over this Nico here. She's not that important. The Nico is the most cuttable Heavenly unit if you're curious. If you're ever wondering what to cut, it's almost always Nico, just because the HP is really not that relevant. We're not playing for Mythic or Arcanist or anything like that. You would much prefer the stats from Qiyana and obviously Wukong than from Nico. So this is like a more capped version of the board. And then, you know, if you want, you can also think about other stuff to get in. Like Ornn actually fits pretty well into this board on like a level 9 maybe, just to have a beefy tank. But you also can just play the more vertical Heavenly version. That's like very straightforward, especially if you get like Heavenly +1. You can throw that onto Kayn. You could even throw it onto Yone. Yone itemization here. BT Titans is pretty much compulsory. You need healing on him, right? Hodge is pretty good as well because he is a Reaper unit, so he can like deal well with the extra crit chance. But BT I think is just better just because you're a little bit scared of this Yone unit dying, and so the shielding from the BT I think is very valuable. Titans is really nice to help him scale up so that, you know, the first cast he's usually going to jump to like maybe frontline, do a little bit of extra damage to the enemy frontline, and then you're going to get Titans stacked up during that cast. Then second cast, ideally he's going to jump to backline, have a fully taxed Titans, do infinity damage, be really tanky, and be an absolute beast. And then last item, I really like Quicksilver. I just think it really depends on what the lobby looks like. If you have a really like low CC lobby where there's not like lots of like Nautiluses and like people that you're afraid are going to stun you, then you can go like Hodge last item. You can go like Sterax last item. I wouldn't build anything like an IE. I've even seen Deathblade. I don't think it's amazing. I like a defensive item just to get him there, and I think a lot of lobbies you will be seeing CC that you're afraid for Yone to deal with. The upside is that Lissandra is less played now, so you don't have to worry too much about your Yone getting potted. But still, I think QS has quite a solid item on him. And also, I mean, the stats are just good on him, right? It's crit, it's attack speed, it's MR, it's everything you could ever want. So this is, in my opinion, the third strongest comp that I'm going to talk about today. The next comp is actually pretty similar to this, so I'm not even going to show you any buffs and nerfs because it's another Yone comp. This is the 6 Umbral comp, and this is a comp that was so strong last patch. Play around a Loon 3 and 6 Umbral if you get an Umbral spat, and you just do absolute work. But the problem is you always want to go for a Loon 3, but you never really wanted to go for Yone 3 because he was so weak. But I think with this buff, you're going to want to actually go for Yone 3, put the same items onto Yone, and then a Loon items you really want heal cut onto her, a Morello or a red buff, just because the burn will help her execute better. If the Morello burn gets a unit into the Umbral execute range, it will execute them. So burn really nice on a Loon. And then you just want AP and mana generation. Death Cap and Shojin are really nice. You can also go stuff like Adaptive Cone, Adaptive Helm. You can even go stuff like Blue Buff if you end up needing to build it. It's not too bad. Archangels is also a really nice item on a Lune, just getting those big casts at the end of fights to destroy entire boards. So yeah, it's a duo carry 3-cost comp, so you'll go 7, roll for this kind of stuff. Ideally, you'll high roll a Silas and a Kayn on 7, but if you don't, not the end of the world. Umbral Spat Holder. There are a lot of really good ones. Irelia is one of the best. The two best ones, I would say, are Irelia and Azir, because they fit really well into the board and they use the execute really well. Prior to getting to Irelia, you can use Lilia, who's pretty solid. You can even throw it onto someone like Annie if you're feeling like you're lacking frontline. Also on this board, you can think about getting other stuff in. There is the possibility of adding like an Aatrox to this board, which fits really well. It's Bruiser and Ghostly for the board. It's just, I would rather prioritize getting a really good Umbral unit in, and you do kind of want a frontliner here, whether that's Ornn or that's Annie. You just need some kind of solid frontline to play around this board. I think Ornn is really, really nice on this board, but yeah, just you need some kind of frontline, right? I mean, Yone 3 will be frontline a little bit, and yeah, I would say the ideal world is you get to like an Azir late game or a Irelia late game, throw the Umbral spat onto them and just have them do work. Azir also, when you're playing Ornn, is Triad, which is like funny. But yeah, this board I think will be really, really solid on the patch. Like I said, already quite solid on the patch. The only way this comp was nerfed, I didn't actually talk about it because it's not that common, is the Umbral Augment. Wrath of the Moon got its damage increase reduced. So yeah, just 4 to 3.5%. Not the end of the world, but a small reduction in the damage increase. I mean, if you talk about percentages, it's pretty big. But that augment was kind of broken, so I think it's reasonable. But if you're just in the world where you get Umbral +1 and you play this comp, I think you'll do very, very well. So those are all really, really solid comps. But there's one more comp that I want to yap about, actually. Another 3-cost reroll comp, and that is Zoe Reroll. This is a comp that didn't really receive too many changes, like I talked about earlier. The Aatrox buffed slightly, the Riven buffed slightly. I don't think there was anything else that really changed in this comp outside of the 3-cost odds, but this is a comp that I already thought was really, really solid. If you could get to a Zoe 3, your board was tremendously strong. And now you're going to be able to actually roll for Zoe 3 on level 7 more reasonably. So you can find these guys on 6, the Aatrox, Riven, Shen, even the Zyra 3 you can go for as well. Or you can think about just pushing levels, going for Zoe 3 on 7, and then like finding a few of them. Like we saw in the shop odds change, the odds of getting a 2-cost is a little bit lower on level 7, but the big thing is the huge increase in 3-cost odds. So yeah, I mean, you play for Zoe 3 in this comp, she becomes an absolute monster. I like this setup of Zoe a lot, just getting a static Shiv onto her. If you are with a ton of items, you can static Shiv your Zyra. I've heard rumors that static Shiv interacts positively with Zoe. I don't know exactly. Like, if she gets a kill with the static Shiv, I believe it does count for her passive. But people were saying that it counts for like assists with static Shiv, which I believe Leduc did a video on, and that's not true. I think it might work on a kill with static Shiv. So all I know is the stats say static Shiv is fantastic onto Zoe, which makes a decent amount of sense. I mean, it's still a really, really good item. You want static Shiv much more. Exactly same thing as the Lilia Morgana comp, where you really would prefer static Shiv to Ionic Spark because Zoe is going to be bouncing to backline. Zyra can be potentially sniping backline. Morgana can potentially snipe backline. So you really, really want static Shiv in this comp just because you're a backline access comp. You can put your items on Shen 3. If there are less people playing Alawi because Snipers got nerfed a little bit, then hey, maybe you can hit like an Alawi 3 and then itemize her. But, you know, I would not count on it. I would think that this is a much more standard version of the board. And hey, if you get extra items, you can itemize Riven, you can itemize Aatrox. Thief's Glove's probably the easiest thing to do on either one of them, just because it's really easy to apply. You're not gonna have a lot of items for them. And then Heal Cut, you can throw it onto Morgana. It's not the biggest deal because you do have the Heal Cut that's inbuilt in Zyra, but this isn't the most reliable, so you do want to still build Heal Cut. It's just, I would much rather prioritize something like Shred over Heal Cut, and then you can get Heal Cut later down the line. But yeah, these are my 5 comps for this patch. I am really, really excited to see what this patch gives. I'm kind of sad that I'm gonna be on vacation. I mean, I'm really hyped to be on vacation. You know, chilling on the beach, sipping cocktails. You know how it is. But I'd really like to play this patch. I hope that everyone who plays in the Tactician's Trials, which is going to be the weekend that I'm out, has a good time, and then, you know, I'll get to co-stream the Cup the second weekend after that, so that'll be really, really fun. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you made it this far, I guess I will shill for my Metafy class, which link in the description down below. It'll be probably a week and a half after this video comes out is when that class is going to be. It's cheaper than a regular coaching session, but you'll be able to interact with me in the class. We'll be able to talk about strongest board in TFT, which is a really, really fun concept. So if you're interested, check that out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.